Hello, Timelyart here, and today's topic will be on how to use Kairos to create a summary and to export data. So last time in the fourth video we kind of left off where we did create like a bunch of signals, and this is already pretty convenient. Going through like a handful of signals instead of like 200, 400 or even 1,000. That's pretty great, but for me it wasn't good enough, so what I created was a kind of a summary. So you can make a summary mail, and this video will show you how you can create this for yourself as well. So first thing we need to do is to give Kairos access to your Gmail. To do so we need to configure a Kairos configuration file. So let's go to the configuration file. Go to the subsection mail, and here you will find user ID and a password. Just fill in your username and your password. However, if you have two-factor authentication enabled, as you should, then you need to generate an app password. Now to create an app password, we need to go to your Gmail account. So let's go here. Log in to your Gmail account. This is the most convenient way. Press your icon on the right. Press Google account. And then we will go to security. And then you will see under signing into Google, you will find app passwords. You can see I've already got one password, which is of course for Kairos. Just confirm that it's really you, so just enter your password. Creating the app password is really straightforward. Go to select app, choose other, pick your name. So in this case I will use Kairos introduction, and simply click on generate. Now you will get a 16-letter password, and you need to copy this and paste that in your configuration file. So like this. And that's it, that's done. Let's close the page. Now before we continue, I have a separate email account just to forward TradingView alerts, and I do this because of security. You're giving Kairos access to your Gmail, basically to your G+ account even. So I think it's prudent to create a separate Gmail account just to manage your mails for Kairos. So what will happen is TradingView will send me an alert, and it will send me one to my regular mail account, which I use at TradingView. Then my regular Gmail account will forward it to my Kairos Gmail account. Now if my password gets compromised, they won't get a whole lot out of it. The account is not used for anything else but communication with Kairos. So this is why I highly recommend using a similar setup as mine. Now let's move back to the configuration file. You can leave most of the settings as is. You can do some fancy stuff with Gmail as well, but I'm not going to get into it because most of you won't need it. I would say that you want to make sure that for the search area you have a value of unseen, which is also default. The reason is that if you provide that value, then Kairos will only process mails which haven't been processed before. So it will only process unread mails, and after it has processed the mail, it will be marked read. So in that way you are certain that you don't get like signals from the day before or that have already been processed. There's one option which you can maybe change. You can set the format to either a table, so you will get the data like the URL to the chart and of course the symbol. You will get it in a table format. What I like is to go to my summary mail and just look at a chart. If you want to include the screenshots, then you need to leave it on list. Alright, let's put in my username. Okay, and let's save it. Alright, with the Kairos configuration file done, let's finally go to the YAML file to edit. We go to the Kairos installation directory and then to YAML, and then we will edit this underscore summary.yaml. Before we do that, let's rename it and remove the underscore. Alright, there we go. Now before I go into the options of the summary.yaml, I'd like to mention that you can run the summary like together with any other YAML file. So for example the DAVO we did in the fourth video, or you can run it separately. Alright, so first off we have email, and this is really the setups, the options to create a summary mail. So you can see the summary mail is only a small part of what you can do here. I will go through all the other options as well. Most of you just want to send the mail to yourself. So I use my TradingView mail. So my TradingView mail right at gmail.com. Now you can set up a list here. So you could use this to kind of get a kind of newsletter service going or something. But most of you won't. So for example, Alex, he's using this in this way to send his newsletter around. Now you can also define like CC, like carbon copy and black carbon copy. I recommend not using it. Like black carbon copy, it's not even supported by Gmail as far as I know. So I mean, it will work, but it's not like private at all. You can still see the all the BCC addresses. So let's just remove this. We don't need it. Done. Now you can use some kind of subject. It's fine as is. So if you want to make your newsletter really fancy, you can embed basically the keyword summary into your email, into your markup for your email. Most of you don't care if there's text in front or text afterwards, so you can just remove it and just leave the word percentage summary like this. Now if for any reason you don't want to send an email, summary mail, then you can set this to you to no. One more thing, you see here the 1 mail per recipient. This will make sure that Gmail will send 1 mail per person in your to list. In this way it's impossible for the recipient to see who else has received the email. So this is basically what the black carbon copy function should do. And this is the way to do it in a private manner. So if you have a newsletter with like 100 subscribers, then you will send 100 mails, and each subscriber won't know the addresses of the other subscribers. Now Gmail does have a limit on how many mail you can send or are allowed to send. So just be cognizant of that. But for most people, for most of you, you just want to send 1 mail to yourself, and it's now Kairos can create a watch list from the signals as well. and you can attach this watch list into your summary mail. So this is also pretty convenient because you will get a list in a small document, and you can import this list, for example, in TradingView. However, it gets even more convenient because you can just set import to yes, and then it will create a watch list into TradingView. Now the watch list has a name, of course, and you can put in any kind of text here. There are two keywords, date and time. So you can basically create, if you have a 4-hourly run, if you then you probably want to also have like a time and a date included into the name. If you have a daily run, then probably the date is enough, right? Or if you want to just have one list, like one watch list, then you can just remove the keywords. So what will happen now, if I will run it, there will be a summary watch list made into TradingView. If I put this on yes, like this. If I run it the second time, then the existing watch list in TradingView will be overwritten. So this is cool because you basically have one watch list, will be updated every time you run it. So this is also how I use it. So I have basically called a DAVO watch list, and it will always be updated every night. So I always have the latest setups for that day in that watch list. Now, besides creating a summary mail and a watch list, you can also use the data created or generated by Kairos and send it to a webhook or an endpoint like Zapier. You can define multiple endpoints here, really up to you. This is also how I, for example, send the signals to Rocket Chat for the TRI website. Now, if you have a whole list of setups and you only want to have like a particular setup that you want to send to a particular endpoint, you can like define a list of search criteria. So if the signal has one of the keywords that you list here, then it will be sent to the endpoint, and otherwise it won't. So in this way you can also categorize your signals into different endpoints and organize it in your data in that way. Now, your endpoint provider may have like limitations on how much data you can send at once. If that is the case, then you can put in a batch size. A batch size is, if it's like batch size like 5, then it will send 5 signals at once, and it will continue to send batches of 5 signals until all the signals have been sent. If you set it to 0, then everything will be sent in one go. Now there's only one topic left to address, and that is how you can export data into Google Sheet. Now, before we can set up Google Sheets, we need to set separate permissions for it. To do so, we need to go to, let's open a new browser window. We need to go to console.developers.google.com. Now, when you come here for the first time, you may be prompted by Google to accept their terms and conditions. Now, first we need to create a project. Just press create on the right side. Let's call it Kairos. Create. So this will take a little while, apparently. Okay. Then we go to enable APIs and services. Alright, we want to give access to Google Sheet. So let's search for Google Sheet. press enable. Again, this might take a little while. Now we will go to create credentials, and we will follow the link to the service account. Select create service account. Let's call it Kairos. And create. I'm not quite sure if we need to do anything here. I don't think so. No. Continue. This is all okay. Done. Now, setting permissions for service accounts. This is really goes beyond the scope of this video. If you want to be more secure, you should definitely research this part a little bit. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to mess with permissions. We actually need to do one more thing, and that is to create a key. Now when you create a private key, you will get a JSON file. You will download the JSON file, and it will be downloaded only once. You will not be able to download it a second time. So if you lose the file, you basically need to create a new key with a new file. Alright, so let's create it. Okay, close. Now let's go back to our dashboard. Just remove everything after developers.google.com. Now, besides the Google Sheets API, you also need to have access to the Google Drive, because we need to browse through your Google Drive to find the Google Sheets basically. So let's go back to enable APIs and services and search for Drive. Enable. All right. Now we go to create credentials. We choose, in this case, Google Drive API. Choose other UI. It is a command line tool, so application data, and click what credentials do I need. And it will actually show you that you already have credentials, because we set up a service account. We can use that service account to access both the Google Sheet API and the Google Drive API. Okay, click done. And if we go back to the dashboard, we now have both the Google Drive API and Google Sheets API. Now we're done with setting up the API, so we can close this. Let's go to our Explorer, and let's go to downloads, where hopefully you will have your JSON file saved. I've got a couple because I've been testing. Alright, but we need the JSON file, so put the JSON file. We need the JSON file to be in your well, it can be anywhere, but let's put it in our Kairos installation directory. So I will copy it there. Paste it here. Now you can leave the name as is, but I will rename it to something which I can actually recognize. So Google API JSON. Alright, that's it. Then we need to go to the Kairos configuration file. This is the Kairos configuration file, right? and you need to define where Kairos can find your JSON file under the section API. Okay, we're done with the configuration file, so we can close that. Now, before we can continue, we need to actually create a Google Sheet. Kairos doesn't create a Google Sheet for you if it doesn't exist. So to do so, we go to the menu of Gmail, Google Apps, and then we go to Drive, right click, context menu, Google Sheets. Alright, now let's give this a good name, like Kairos introduction. Okay, that's fine enough. Kairos is set up so it can handle multiple sheets. So what you could do, for example, is do one setup, like separate all the setups by sheet. I mean, it's possible if you want. So let me create another sheet to make it clear that it's actually possible. So I don't know, this may be your readme stuff, how the sheet works. Basically, let's rename this to Davo, and maybe you have another sheet called notes, I don't know, something like that. Now we need to actually share the Google Sheet with the service account. So unfortunately we need to go back to the service account, console developers.google.com. Then we go to credentials, manage service accounts, and we need to copy this email address. Let's see if I can simply like this. Okay, copy, go back to the sheet, click share, paste the address, send. Okay, let's close the console window. Now we finally can finish the YAML file. So let's move over to the YAML file. So we have a name called Kairos introduction. Here we can set the sheet. So in this case it's called the Davo sheet. Now the index is basically where Kairos will insert the result. So what will happen is at row, so as it is set up now, it will insert at row number 2, and this means that the latest entry will always be on top. So the oldest entry will be down below, and it will shift downwards. And the latest entry will be at row number 2. This is, I think, convenient because you will have the latest entries always on the top of your page, and also this makes it possible so you can add headers explaining what each column is. Just like with webhooks, you can define search criteria. So this makes it possible that you can put different setups in different sheets. So let's put in Davo. If you leave the list empty, it will always add the result to the sheet. So it's just good practice to always put in the search criteria of your setup, I think. And then enabled, yes or no, and of course you want to. Now let's verify if everything is as we want it. Let me see, we've got an email address, subject is filled, we have the summary, it's all on send, that's fine, watch list, yes, want to import it as well. Webhooks, we didn't define a webhook, so we should not enable it. So let's put this on no. We just defined the Google Sheet, that looks dandy, and we want to run it in the background. Okay, so this is okay. Let's save it. We're done with configuring. So let's see what happens when we run it. So let's open an elevated command prompt. Search for CMD. Right click, run as administrator. Confirm when prompted to do so. Now let's order some of the background so we can see in real time that stuff is happening. Okay. Okay, just one more thing. We need to set this on the DAVO, of course, otherwise we won't see any results here. Now Google doesn't refresh that quickly sometimes, so it might be that we don't see the results inserted here in real time, but they should come up after a refresh. So okay, we're done. So let's run the file. We first need to go to our Kairos installation directory, of course. Python main.py summary.yaml, and now we add the flag -s, and this will tell Kairos to run the summary, actually to create a summary mail and look for export data options. You can delay the summary mail as well. If I do like -s and then space and then 10, this will delay the summary mail by 10 minutes. Having a delay is useful when you want to create a summary right after you've scanned markets for a particular setup. So I run a DAVO setup every day, and I want to generate a summary in my inbox. So when I get up in the morning, I just have a summary. The delay of 10 minutes gives mail providers and TradingView as well, gives it time so you can collect all the alerts and don't miss like one at the end or something. So it basically just ensures that you have all the data already in your inbox. Now for the purpose of this video we don't need to wait for 10 minutes because we have already all the data in our mailbox. And let's run it. When Kairos is done running the summary part, it will give you some info about where the watchlist was imported and also to whom it sent email. Now let's have a look at the results. Now we can clearly see that it has inserted the signals into the spreadsheet. Now you can add your headers, so this would be I don't know, this will be the alert, I suppose. Date, it will insert your chart. So this is the chart, and this is a link to a screenshot. Exchange and symbol. Symbol. So now we have a nice overview, and it will just after each run it will just update. This is pretty cool. Next up, let's close this. Now all the alerts have been read, so next time it runs it doesn't read them again. We have one in our inbox, which is our summary mail. So here it is. This has all the signals. It's pretty cool. So now it's really easy. You can click on the chart and it will take you to the chart. If you want to open the screenshot, you can click on here on this link. Yeah. So this is really, I like. So you can close this off as well. Now let's see if it also imported the watch list. So let's go to watch lists, and oh, we need to I need to refresh the page, and now it should be yeah, so it already loaded the summary, so it's the summary watch list has been added. And now every time this one, when I run the summary, it will update this watch list. So yeah, that's about it. This concludes this video, and I hope to catch you all in the next one.